Hey there, nice to see you. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Nets program where we talk to reporters, writers, and editors, and all different people who are involved in journalism and writing about the Bronx. And in our second segment, we usually do arts and performance. And this evening, we're going to go to the Bronx River Arts Center, one of the most important and one of the greatest places in the Bronx for arts. But to start, we're going to stay with the city and say hello to our friend Jonathan Custodio, who is the Bronx reporter at the city. Nice to see you, Jonathan.
I
Welcome
see.
back.
Happy to be back.
Let's talk about a couple of things that you have written. The story about homeless youth with housing vouchers illegally rejected by the Bronx landlord. There's a lawsuit about that. That is what you wrote about. It seems to me you're not allowed to investigate who people are or what their ability to pay, because then you might reject them for supportive housing, right? Do I got that right? Explain to me what the issue is here.
So firstly, it's illegal under city and state law to discriminate based on income or to discriminate based on people who have housing vouchers. What happened here was there were about 14 people in total who applied to an apartment building, a newly constructed apartment building in Williamsbridge. About nine of them had heard back saying that they were initially accepted, only to then have those revoked after the real estate broker, on the request of the landlord, requested to have more info on their income. Only one person then got to stay at that, got to maintain having the application accepted. And that person was the one who had a lot of income, according to the landlord. So these plaintiffs, these tenants, prospective tenants, then filed a lawsuit with Safe Horizon and the Legal Aid Society, alleging that they've been at the hands of income discrimination.
And so how did they allege, or how did the property owner or the landlord find out what their income level was? Was there some improper paperwork that passed that got them to that point? So in other words, they said, "Well, and did that, or was there some other background investigation, like they got an investigator to find out who they are? I mean,
Yeah.
what happened there?
No, so how it works is, these young adults who are all between the ages of 20 and 25 are on Section 8 housing vouchers. And they, with that comes with a housing navigator with Safe Horizon. So that housing navigator is working with the real estate broker and they're exchanging information. So they
Wow."
yeah, so that navigator submitted the application on their behalf, initially approved. Then I guess the landlord was like, "Wait a second, I want more info on their incomes." It's unclear as to what the landlord was thinking through that time period, but this all took place within just a couple weeks. So yeah.
Oh, go ahead, finish what you were saying. I just had to follow it.
So after that, that's when a select few of them were then reject. Most of them were then rejected, and so they believe that after seeing that, some of them didn't have income or had very little income and were relying on these housing vouchers, they think that that's why the landlord. They allege that that's why the.
Realize, right. Do you have a sense that this is a larger issue? Now, if you want to name the landlord, we can do that. But do you have a sense that this is a larger issue and that you've kind of uncovered something that now is happening out there more often?
Well, I did speak with the attorney who says that this is not uncommon for people who have housing vouchers to have a lot of difficulty getting apartments, particularly those who are young adults. And often there is a stigma that is applied to young adults as them never having had an apartment before, or them partying, or them just not being responsible tenants as compared to others. And these are all people who are currently experiencing homelessness, either have done so for a couple of months or for a year or two. So that makes it even more difficult on their part to find housing.
Yeah, and then so this is what your problem is finding housing. You may have found a property that would work for you, and then that problem is exacerbated, and now you're back to square one. And how are you going to get out there, get out of it, if you have this stigma that is illegal to be applied to your housing application. Let's play devil's advocate. So you're a property owner and you value your property and you value the condition of it. You don't want to turn it into a much more difficult place. Um, is there, even if it's not legal, is there some sympathy from them wanting to screen people a little more carefully to make sure, or is it really so prejudicial that it's just not fair for you to do it? In other words, I know many developers and many property owners want to do the right thing. Maybe there's a little sympathy out there for them that bringing people who are destroying my properties, or sending my neighbors away, or that kind of thing. Is there a place to have that dialogue?
I mean, I think absolutely. Obviously, there's already a pretty rigid screening process that goes to apartments to begin with, as anyone who goes through the process can tell you. But I think one additional thing to point out with this lawsuit is that um, these are all studio apartments they're applying for, and they were just about $2,200. But then after um, these prospective tenants had the opportunity taken away from them, these apartments were then found to be listed on Zillow at 2 grand a month, 2,000.
Wow.
So
So that's really messed up. I gotta say that is pretty messed up. So not only did they investigate them and then pull the rug out from underneath them, they deliberately had a higher price because of who they were perceived to be.
right, and also last thing I think
That's bad.
no is the building does not at this time have a certificate of occupancy,
Right.
so they can't even put anyone in the building yet.
Wow. And where is the building? As I said, do we want to mention the name of the landlord at this point?
I mean, it's in the story. So, his
Okay.
name is Alexander Kalej. I hope I
Right.
pronounced that correctly. The building is 3823 Carpenter Avenue in Williamsbridge.
Right.
Newly
Uh,
constructed.
what's the status of the lawsuit? I want to get into something else, but what is the status of that lawsuit now? Or it's in the court system, and
Uh,
one day it'll be dealt with.
yeah, so it just got in the court system last week, and I believe they're still waiting for a hearing date to be scheduled. But they're ultimately, their attorneys, the number one thing is to get these prospective tenants in the housing that they apply for.
Yeah. And the other story, or another of many stories that you've written, the other one that I do want to bring up is about community boards. Now, applications for community boards, if you'd like to be in the community board, are open now. I think the deadline is March 3rd. Um, but you found, and I wasn't aware of this, that in Community Board 5, they struggled to make a quorum for meetings. So think about, I don't know how many people are in a community board. 250,000 people. I mean, I don't know how large they are right now, and the community board couldn't have a meeting and couldn't take votes and couldn't really move forward. This is Community Board 5, which is on the west side of the Bronx, down by like the Concourse, Mount Hope, in that area down there. Talk to me a little, or talk to us a little bit about what has gone on down there.
Yeah, so for November and December of last year, Community Board 5 did not meet quorum. They were finally able to last month. They have about 37 members. To meet quorum, for your listeners who don't know, you need to have more than half of that. So that means they couldn't get 19 people to show up. Now, these are also months where they're at the last Wednesday of every month. So there's a lot of traveling that goes on, and they normally adjust that to accommodate the traveling. But they still were not able to meet quorum, which means they missed out on discussing a couple voting items that included discussion of an affordable housing project, and another presentation that got pushed back. So it really delays things, and also doesn't touch base on there are a bunch of community board meetings that happen throughout the month, and while I
Well,
didn't.
these would be committee meetings, I
Right, committee
presume.
meetings, right, right, where it could be land use or economic development within that nature, and there are some community boards maybe might not meet quorum on those either.
Wow.
So it's
That's a difficult thing. I appreciate that you uh, gave them a quote unquote excuse by saying, well, November and December are travel times, and I guess the last Wednesday in November is, I guess, right after Thanksgiving, and the last Wednesday in December. But these other community boards get it together. I don't want to. Point fingers at anybody in particular, but with all that's going on in our city and in our borough, if you agreed to be a community board member, one would think you kind of want to, do the best you can. We should say Community Board 5 is Fordham, University Heights. I mentioned Mount Hope, Morris Heights, and the Mount Hope neighborhoods. Um, so now the borough president appointed a new director of community boards in her office. And she was talking about another issue and talked about there are going to be changes. Do you have a sense of what's coming out of Borough Hall in the future for community boards?
I'm not entirely sure, but I know judging off of just their new community board application, which is digital for the first time,
Yes,
is the Spanish translated version as well, and they're also pushing. As you know, community board members can be as young as 16 years old.
that's
Um,
incredible. Yeah,
they're pushing that a lot as well. So, I think they're really trying to ensure that they have a stronger membership than they've had in the past. But these are bigger issues. City Council member Peter Sanchez told me for the story that part of CB5's struggle is these are a lot of people who have a lot of things going on outside of their lives. Work, taking
right,
care of kids. Maybe two jobs. This time the third. So that's a big issue in CB5, and that's just another thing that they kind of have to
right.
contend with. So
Well, they're going to have to work through it. There, you can email CB applications at bronxbp.nyc.gov if you'd like to apply, or you have questions about being a community board member. I certainly would encourage anybody who's listening to us in the Bronx and CB5 or any a community board to participate. We need you. The more, the merrier. The more interested people, the better. You got anything coming up that you want to tell us about, Jonathan?
uh,
I'm always looking for a scoop.
not at the moment. Now we got some
uh,
things cooking, but not quite ready to share
all
quite
right,
yet.
fair enough. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, he does a great job. Check out The City, and you read the Bronx issues and the Bronx articles by our buddy Jonathan Custodio. Jonathan, we thank you for joining us here on the Bronx Buzz. I can guarantee you we're going to call you again and bring you back. You keep writing, we'll keep calling.
Thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate it.
Great. We are going to take a short break, folks, and then we're going to switch gears and go to the Bronx River Arts Center, one of the best places in the Bronx. Don't go away.